Who would have thought that this entire apartment building was filled with immortal monsters? Even if their heads are cut off, they can still tirelessly hunt down any intruders. Welcome to the 2026 blockbuster thriller They're Coming For You. Who else? The protagonist, Ellie, arrives at a magnificent yet ancient apartment building. After ringing the doorbell, a woman who looks like a housekeeper opens the door. Turns out, Ellie is here to apply for a maid position. After a quick ID check, Ellie is invited inside by the housekeeper. But the moment she steps in, she senses something eerie about the place. All visitors must surrender their phones to protect the residence's absolute secrecy. Because the residents here are all wealthy elites, you might bump into a CEO of a top global anti-aging company. And these tycoons all seem friendly. Delighted by Ellie's arrival, the hallway is bustling with busy maids. But Ellie notices a few maids sitting leisurely around a dining table. The housekeeper assigns her a room, and as she opens the door, she sees her husband Mike stepping out. For some unknown reason, he immediately tells Ellie to get lost. The housekeeper scolds her husband on the spot. If you can't even do your job as a cleaner, get out. Quote, after entering her room, Ellie quickly stashes her suitcase in the closet. As she prepares to shower, she suddenly sees words written on the mirror. They're going to kill you. Ellie's guard instantly goes up. She realizes this building is far darker than she imagined. Scanning her surroundings carefully, Ellie finds the ventilation duct suspicious. But as she steps closer to inspect it, she sees a pair of sinister eyes staring back. Ellie's nerves instantly tense up. She barricades the door to prevent anyone from entering. But exhaustion still overwhelms her. After what feels like an eternity, the doorknob suddenly turns. Although the people outside couldn't get in, a dark shadow emerged beneath the vent. The next second, a drop of saliva landed on Eileen's face. The girl jolted awake from the bed. But the cold sensation on her face proved that what just happened wasn't an illusion. Trembling, she scanned the room, only for a handkerchief to suddenly appear behind her. Eileen caught a whiff of the pungent ether smell, and in the moment before losing consciousness, she yanked the lamp cord. Soon, several men in black entered the room. Just as they were about to drag Eileen away, she suddenly put the cord in her mouth. The intense shock jolted her awake instantly. Eileen screamed and dashed into the wardrobe, leaving the men in black utterly stunned. Was she trying to reenact a scene from Home Alone? The men stood leisurely in front of the wardrobe, only to find upon opening it, Eileen thrusting a sharp longsword at them. The men in black never expected her suitcase to be packed with weapons. What surprised them even more was Eileen's exceptional combat skills. Despite their numerical advantage in this life or death struggle, Eileen's strikes were swift and ruthless. She quickly wiped them all out. As she stepped out of the room, ready to deal with the last straggler, the butler suddenly applauded from behind. He hadn't expected Eileen to be so skilled. You. Who are you? Quote. Eileen's thoughts drifted back to a cold rainy night 10 years ago. She had fled home with her younger sister, finally saving enough money to escape their monstrous father's clutches and start a new life in another city. But reality proved far crueler than imagined. Their father pursued them like a vengeful ghost. In the critical moment, Eileen pulled out a preloaded pistol. Unfortunately, the bullet missed its mark and instead alerted nearby police. The sisters' fates took a drastic turn. Eileen fled into the dark, rainy night, but ultimately couldn't escape the police. And young Sarah fell back into the hands of their despicable father. Eileen's extraordinary skills were honed during her time in prison. For the past decade, she's been tracking news of her younger sister. But recently, she heard her sister had gone missing. A private investigator traced the last location of Sarah's phone signal to this high-end apartment in Manhattan, known as the Virgil. The building has a sinister reputation. Low-level employees hired here often mysteriously disappear, yet the police have never properly investigated, likely due to protection from powerful conglomerates. To uncover the truth and save her sister, Eileen assumed the identity of a woman named Isabel and infiltrated the building. Now, with nothing left to hide, she threatened the butler to hand over her sister. "Give me my sister, and you can pray for mercy." But the butler showed no sign of panic. She calmly warned Eileen, "You've come to the wrong place." As soon as she spoke, the dead men in black suits walked out of the room. One even reattached his own severed head. Eileen could hardly believe her eyes. Suddenly, a maid rushed out, risking injury to grab Eileen's weapon. Terrified, Eileen fled into the nearest room, locked the door, and considered jumping out the window. But the glass was bulletproof. As the intruders began breaking in, Eileen found a hidden tunnel in her haste. Without hesitation, she crawled inside. Only then did she realize the tunnel branched in all directions, seemingly connecting to every room. Faint voices echoed nearby. Peering through a gap, she saw the butler giving orders, and even mentioning her sister's name. But the next moment, Eileen's hiding spot was discovered. A blade suddenly slashed toward her, but the butler urgently shouted. She must be kept alive. Quote. Ai couldn't understand the butler's motives. Why would they want to keep me alive? But perhaps this was for the best. At least she wouldn't have to worry about being shot in the back anymore. But these creatures were truly bizarre. Even after being shot in the head, they could still move freely. Only then did Ai realize. She wasn't dealing with ordinary people. Now the entire building was locked down. She was completely trapped like a caged beast. Just as Ai was losing hope, Mike came to her rescue again. The message left in the bathroom earlier was also from this kind janitor. He knew this wasn't some luxury apartment, but a temple of Satan. All the wealthy residents here had made deals with demons. They traded human sacrifices for immortality. As long as their names remained on the altar's list, these elites would remain undying and indestructible. Some lucky staff members were also granted the gift of immortality, but most servants ended up as mere sacrificial offerings. For years Mike had been tormented by guilt, but could only help secretly. New employees like Ai, because these immortals were virtually invincible, there was only one way to destroy them. Erase their names from the altar's list. But ordinary believers couldn't get near it. Ai didn't really care about this. She just wanted to save her sister. After much deliberation, Mike finally led Ai through ventilation shafts until they dropped into a locked room. There she finally reunited with her long-lost sister. But Sarah showed no joy at their reunion. Why did you come? Quote. After being taken back by their father, she had endured hellish torment. Just as Sarah was losing all hope, she accidentally saw the apartment's job posting. The butler appeared like a beacon of light, not only promising her a loving home, but even offering her immortality. The only condition was that Sarah had to find a sacrifice herself. In an incredible coincidence, the sacrifice intended for Sarah was supposed to be the real maid, Isabel. But in reality, it was Ellie, who had impersonated her to apply for the job. Sarah didn't want her sister to ruin her life again, so she refused to leave with her. Ellie suddenly felt a piercing pain and threw a punch. Since her sister wouldn't cooperate, she had no choice but to take her by force. A deafening gunshot echoed through the building, drawing everyone's attention toward Ellie. Mike, trying to cover the sister's escape, was eventually captured by the housekeeper's wife. Ellie had no choice but to take her sister and flee through the maze-like building. Behind them, a horde of monsters closed in. Her prison-honed combat skills helped her narrowly escape danger time and again. But against these unkillable monsters, she gradually felt her strength waning. Just as the monsters were about to pounce, a massive axe suddenly flew from behind. It was Sarah, joining the fight. Ellie was overwhelmed with emotions. She apologized for abandoning her years ago, admitting she had lived in regret every single day for a decade. The sisters finally reconciled and embraced tightly. But their crisis wasn't over yet. The housekeeper returned with a swarm of black-clad men, like tireless wolves. They cornered the sisters at the rooftop's edge. Ellie had already guessed. The housekeeper intended to sacrifice her, so she threatened to take her own, demanding he release Sarah, or she would jump. She doomed the night's ritual to failure. But the housekeeper revealed a crueler truth. Sarah, in exchange for immortality, had signed a blood pact with a demon. Tonight, a sacrifice was necessary, or Sarah herself would die. Ellie's world shattered. To save her sister, she surrendered, letting the housekeeper seize her. Surrounded by countless black-clad figures, Ai was quickly brought before the altar. Unexpectedly, what was enshrined on the altar was actually a pig's head. But under the red light's glow, Ai saw the phantom of a demon. Turns out this pig's head was the evil god's spokesperson. The butler respectfully stepped forward and exaggeratedly recounted Mike's betrayal. The pig's head snorted angrily, waving its tentacles to erase Mike's name. This meant he lost his immortality. The butler picked up a kitchen knife and made a swift cut. Mike collapsed in a pool of blood, his life extinguished. Now came the main event. Sarah was about to complete the demonic contract. The first step was to write the immortal's name on the pig's head, then personally slaughter the chosen sacrifice. Tearful Ai was ready to face death. It was the only way. But Sarah suddenly raised the knife toward herself. Turns out what Sarah wrote on the pigskin was actually Ailee's name. She was offering herself as the sacrifice to grant her sister immortality. Overwhelmed with grief, Ai transformed into an undead warrior. In an instant, she slaughtered all the accomplices, leaving none alive. The butler tried his old trick again, attempting to erase Ailee's name from the pigskin. But enraged Ai gave him no chance. With one swift motion, she cut away the pigskin, bearing her name, and pocketed it. The pig-headed monster roared and directly possessed the butler's head. Ai fearlessly charged forward. Human and beast instantly locked in combat. Using her immortal body, she took a slash and performed a mid-air flip, ripping the pig's head off the butler. Ai pressed her advantage, grabbed the head and swung it, sending the butler flying high. He landed on a wooden stake, instantly impaled. The now hostless pig-headed demon could no longer resist. A dagger pinned it to the spot. Ai Li quickly grabbed alcohol and burned the pig's head to ashes. As the immortality marks slowly burned away, the immortality of all members has been completely nullified. Soon, they turned into cold, lifeless corpses. As for the others in the apartment, they no longer dared to make any reckless moves, and could only watch helplessly as Ai Li carried her sister's body away into the distance. When Ai Li, exhausted, stepped out of the apartment, the private detective was unexpectedly waiting by the roadside. To her surprise, as soon as she placed her sister in the back seat, the girl suddenly sat up on her own. It turned out that after defeating the demon, Ai Li had secretly altered 2 letters on the pigskin, replacing her own name with her sister Sarah's. The reunited sisters embraced each other tightly as they gazed at the demonic lair reduced to ruins behind them. It felt as if they had just awakened from a long nightmare. This concludes the full story of The One I Killed Was You. If you enjoyed it, please stay tuned for more. See you in the next episode.